5 out of the 10 happiest states are also in the top 10 for educational attainment. However, does correlation usually imply causation? In regards to education and the impact it has on an individual's happiness, there are many different viewpoints that hold plausible. Although demographics, specifically education, can be difficult to narrow down when analyzing well-being and happiness. Happiness related to education correlates to socioeconomic factors and demographics, therefore it can be defined through an individual's background. People come from different parts of the world with unique upbringings, leading to various types of access to education. Therefore, those demographics can affect the relationship between education and happiness, but research in this paper solely describes the effect that education or higher education has on the joys in a person's life. While mental health researchers argue that there is no link between your educational level and personal happiness, others argue that higher levels of education lead to higher incomes, which in turn reports higher levels of happiness. There's a saying, happiness is in the eyes of the beholder. However, the question surrounding that statement is whether or not education affects it. There's a little bit of background information to this as well. The causes of happiness can be very difficult to pin down, especially when it's related to where individuals come from or what they have access to. In this case, the ability one has to obtain an education, how far they can go, and how that affects their happiness. Discussing education incorporates location, class, or socioeconomic status, race, and more. Someone may want to obtain an education but may not have the money to do it. On the other hand, a person may have all the money in the world but chooses not to continue their education or drops out of school. In relation, an individual may not feel as if obtaining an education will be beneficial for them. These factors play a crucial role in how education affects well-being, but this paper will focus strictly on individuals with or without an education and the impact that has on an individual's mental health and happiness. The first perspective, the higher level of education, the higher level of life satisfaction that is reported. This focuses on how receiving an education, specifically at higher levels, produces greater happiness. According to the journal, The Happy State of College Graduates, higher education gives people the opportunity to explore their passions, be they writing, engineering, or even magic. Many people that gain higher education are able to pursue what they love to do. It provides opportunities, specifically for careers that many people who do not go on to higher education cannot attain. This correlates to the degree of education as well, such as high school, college, or graduate school. However, college graduates typically experience better fulfillment, career conditions, and pay than their less educated peers. Therefore, happiness is heightened when people are in better paying careers and feel fulfilled within their position, meaning, although individuals' happiness is increased if they are a college graduate, this is correlated to the job fulfillment they receive within their career later. Also, a report from the Commission on Health stated that those with a higher education tend to live longer and experience better health. In relation, they are more likely to practice healthy behaviors such as exercise, avoid smoking, and getting regular checkups. The resilience that graduates gain after their first years of studies affects their well-being and happiness because it creates more stabilized mental health. These individuals can deal with challenges within their careers that procure income, benefits, and promotions that produce happiness, as well as face any hardships that come up in life. From what students learn throughout their years in school, they attribute to their problem-solving skills later in life and overcoming difficulties. In turn, this creates better overall well-being. However, there are countless stressors that graduates go through, and some believe that education has no correlation to the overall life satisfaction of a person. Perspective 2, many mental health researchers state that there is no link between educational attainment and personal happiness. There are many factors that contribute to happiness other than the degree one obtains, including those that impact mental health. According to the journal, Education Does Not Make You a Happier Person, there is a theory that there is a strong correlation between poor education and mental illness. However, that is not the case. The odds of happiness are equivalent throughout all levels of education, and socioeconomic factors do not correlate. Therefore, individuals that receive any type of degree or education report equal levels of happiness due to the fact that their happiness is not caused by their education. In relation to perspective 2, many people feel education is an added stressor and the root of their unhappiness. Their mental health takes a toll when dealing with education on top of mental illnesses, and continuing on to higher levels of education is almost key to their failure. Typically, education is mentioned as having only indirect effects on happiness, such as income and wealth, employment status, health and mortality, marriage success, or as a proxy for socioeconomic status, according to the journal Our Steam Navy, the Princeton. It is also common that education, like income, raises aspirations and leads to lower levels of happiness. This is widespread throughout the media and literature, however there is little to no empirical evidence. Most individuals want to follow the typical life route that society has placed for us, which includes graduating high school and continuing on to college so that they can feel fulfilled and happy. However, there is no reason this route means undeniable happiness other than what has been depicted through stories or high-status people. Happiness is something everybody knows, but the definition of which nobody can give. In conclusion, while research done by the Commission on Health argues that higher education leads to greater happiness, mental health researchers have explored data that supports the idea that there is no correlation between education and happiness. Teachers, parents, literature, and the media have expressed ideas that continuing one's education will positively impact an individual's happiness. However, the subjective well-being of a person cannot be defined in terms of whether or not they continue their education. Demographics such as income, socioeconomic status, race, location, marital status, and health all contribute to overall life satisfaction and run parallel to someone's education choices. There is no correct answer in relation to how education affects happiness. Whether an individual drops out of high school or continues their education to obtain a doctoral degree, their well-being depends on the factors in their life they can control. There are many opinions regarding one's level of happiness and education, but understanding background knowledge on this idea can lead to divergent routes someone takes in life to obtain happiness.